people who feed one of Africa's most dangerous beasts with their own mouths. A region that is home to the hottest spot on Earth. A scorching desert where a tribe survives temperatures that no other human could endure. In this new video from Uncensored World, we travel to Ethiopia, a nation that holds one of the most valuable mysteries of the Bible and human history. A country where, even today, extraordinary societies continue to exist. Warriors who leap onto the backs of a line of wild bulls to be considered men. Women who enlarge their lips with increasingly larger plates as a symbol of pride and maturity. And men who shut themselves away for months on end, drinking only blood and cow's milk to earn the title of the fattest man in the village. Sit back, keep your eyes wide open and hit like. Discover how people live in Ethiopia, Africa's most isolated nation, where some of the world's most extreme traditions are still practiced. Let's get started. There are places on our planet that seem straight out of a science fiction movie. Something like that happens every day in Harar, a walled city in eastern Ethiopia. And even more so every night, when a small group of men, known as the hyena feeders, kneel by the city wall to feed, with their own mouths, packs of wild hyenas that have been coming to that very spot for generations. This is real, and it's been happening for centuries in Ethiopia. We'll be heading there soon, and you'll discover what it's really like to live side by side every day with one of Africa's most feared animals. But first, we need to understand the reality of the people living in this country, one of the most extreme places on Earth, for many reasons we're about to explore. Ethiopia is located in the Horn of Africa, in the northeast of the continent. It is a country of rugged and extreme terrain, with high plateaus, steep mountains, and deserts where simply living day to day is, in itself, an act of resilience. With more than 120 million inhabitants, it is the second most populous country in Africa, second only to Nigeria. And its capital, Addis Ababa, holds a fact that surprises anyone visiting it for the first time. It is located more than 3,000 meters above sea level, making it one of the 4 highest capitals in the entire world. Living there, at that altitude, affects even the way its inhabitants breathe and work every day. What most people don't know is that Ethiopia was never fully colonized. In 1896, the country became the first African state to defeat a European colonial power, Italy, at the Battle of Adwa. This was such a crushing military defeat for the Italians that 40 years later, they returned to try to avenge it, though they too failed to subdue the country for more than 5 years. This resistance, combined with its nearly inaccessible geography, is why the way of life of millions of Ethiopians has remained almost entirely intact, with traditions that would have long since disappeared anywhere else on the planet. Where are you writing from? We'd love to hear from you in the comments. As you've seen, Ethiopia is a country that was never fully conquered. But beyond that, it hides something much older and more mysterious that few people know about: the origin of our own species. In 1974, a group of scientists was excavating in the Ethiopian Rift Valley when they found something that would forever change what we knew about our own origins. A 3.5 million year old fossilized skeleton, one of the most complete ever found of a human ancestor. They named her Lucy, and the reason for the name is as curious as the discovery itself. At the researchers' camp, on the night of the discovery, a Beatles song, "Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds," was playing on the radio. And so, without any special ceremony, one of the most important fossils in human history was christened. Few people know that, thanks to Lucy, many scientists consider Ethiopia to be the true cradle of our species. In other words, all of us, without exception, have a part of our history buried in this very country. But Ethiopia's origins do not only date back to our most distant ancestors, they are also intertwined with one of the best-known stories in the Bible. According to Ethiopian tradition, it was right here, in the city of Aksum, that the Queen of Sheba ruled before setting out on a journey to Jerusalem to visit King Solomon, an encounter that, according to that same tradition, would have consequences that extend to the present day. For it is said that a son was born of that union, and that this son, as an adult, returned to Jerusalem and managed to bring back with him one of the world's most sacred relics, the Ark of the Covenant, which is believed to contain the original tablets of the 10 Commandments given to Moses. And this is where the story becomes even more intriguing. Before reaching its final destination, the Ark is said to have remained hidden for a time on a small island in Lake Tana, a place called Tana Kirkos, protected from prying eyes. Only later was it moved to Aksum, where, according to tradition, it remains to this day, guarded by a single monk who is forbidden to leave the premises, and is the only person in the world authorized to see it with his own eyes. No one else. Not tourists, not priests, not even the patriarch of the Ethiopian church himself. This same spirit of isolation and resistance, that of a country that protects what is its own almost obsessively, is what also explains why Ethiopia counts time in a way unlike anywhere else on the planet. Here, the calendar has 13 months and is nearly 8 years behind the calendar we use in the West. While much of the world is already living in the year 2026, in Ethiopia right now, that date hasn't arrived yet. A country that measures time differently, that held out against half of Europe, and that guards one of history's most sought-after relics under the watchful eye of a single man. And even with all this, what makes life here truly extraordinary isn't just its past. It lies in how, even today, some of its most isolated villages live, people who have developed ways of surviving that you won't find anywhere else on Earth. And very soon, you'll get to know them. Did you know that the drink you probably had this very morning originated here, in the highlands of Ethiopia? If so, we'd love to hear about it in the comments. Legend has it that, in the 9th century, a shepherd from the Kaffa region noticed something strange about his goats. Every time they ate the red berries from a wild bush, they became unusually active, almost euphoric. Intrigued, he decided to try them himself. And so, almost by accident, coffee was born. Today, that same plant continues to be the daily livelihood of millions of Ethiopian families. And the coffee ceremony, a ritual that can last over an hour, with the beans roasted in full view of the guests, continues to set the social rhythm for much of the country. It's not just a drink, it's the way Ethiopian families gather every afternoon, one after another. But coffee isn't the only thing that has allowed Ethiopians to survive for centuries under some of the harshest conditions on the planet. In southern Ethiopia grows a plant resembling a giant banana, but one that almost no one outside the country knows: enset. Its stem ferments underground for months, sometimes years, until it becomes a dough called kocho, a food that can be stored for a long time and acts as a true lifeline against droughts. When crops fail, when the rain doesn't come, millions of people survive thanks to this plant buried beneath their very feet. In fact, a single enset plant can feed an entire family for months, something no common grain crop can match in these soil conditions. And from that same soil comes another essential food, teff, a grain so tiny that it takes thousands of seeds to fill a single hand, from which injera is made, a flat fermented bread that serves a dual purpose in Ethiopia. It serves as both food and a plate. Families literally eat off their own bread, sharing the same piece of injera among several people at the same table, without utensils. If this is already surprising you, hit like now, because what's coming hasn't even started yet. The time has come to discover the place where this whole video began. In eastern Ethiopia, protected by an ancient 16th century wall, lies Harar, one of the holiest cities in Islam throughout Africa, with more than 80 mosques scattered across just 1 square kilometer of narrow labyrinthine streets. But what makes Harar unique isn't just inside its walls, it's in what happens right on the other side of them when night falls. For generations, a small group of men has gathered every night at specific points along the wall, where there are particular openings, almost like gates, built specifically so that a very specific animal can enter and leave the city. That animal is the spotted hyena, one of Africa's most feared predators, capable of crushing bone with a bite more powerful than a lion's. And yet here, those same hyenas approach meekly, almost tamed, right up to these men's feet. They are known as the hyena feeders, and the most common explanation, the one any tour guide will tell you as soon as you arrive, is simple. They feed the hyenas to prevent them from attacking livestock or the city's residents. It's a way to keep them at bay by offering them food before they have to hunt for it on their own. Each feeder comes to know the hyenas almost by name and claims to recognize each one by the way it approaches or by the markings on its fur, almost as if they were neighborhood pets. It's a tradition passed down from father to son, and one to which only a small number of families in the entire city have access. But this explanation, that of keeping them at bay for safety, begins to unravel as soon as you dig a little deeper. Because if the sole objective were to protect themselves from the hyenas, why do these men go even further, holding the meat directly between their own lips and letting the hyena snatch it from their mouths, just centimeters from their faces? That's where the Harar tradition ceases to have such a simple explanation. What lies behind this gesture, passed down through generations, has far more to do with the faith and history of this city than anyone from outside could ever imagine. The real explanation for why the men of Harar feed the hyenas mouth to mouth has nothing to do solely with livestock. It has to do with something much older, the belief that hyenas are not just dangerous animals, but also spirits, bearers of the good or bad luck the city will experience over the coming year. Every night, dozens of hyenas approach the city wall, and the inhabitants of Harar watch closely as they eat. If the hyenas devour the meat hungrily and quickly, it is interpreted as a sign that the coming year will bring prosperity. If, on the other hand, they reject it or eat reluctantly, the entire city views it as a bad omen. That is why the gesture of holding the meat in one's mouth is not a senseless, reckless act. For those who practice it, it is almost a sacred ritual. The closer a man is to the hyena while eating, the more it is understood that that family, and by extension the entire city, is at peace with these animals, which they have considered part of their own community for centuries, even if it is a community that bites. And this is exactly what we do at Uncensored World. Go beyond what any tourist guide, travel article, or conventional documentary will show you. If you've been following us for a while, you already know that here, the journey always goes further. But before I tell you more, if you haven't subscribed to Uncensored World yet, do so now. Because here you'll continue to discover realities of the world you won't find anywhere else. What few people know is that this tradition nearly disappeared during the 20th century, when local authorities even considered banning it for fear that a tourist might get hurt. Today, however, it has become one of the reasons why thousands of people from all over the world travel to this walled city every year, generating a stream of revenue that has helped keep alive a tradition that would otherwise likely have disappeared along with the last generation that practiced it. Harar was also home during the final years of his life to a figure who stood in stark contrast to this tradition, the French poet Arthur Rimbaud, one of the most influential writers in 19th century European literature, who abandoned poetry entirely and settled in this very city to devote himself to trade. Today, his former home has been preserved as a museum and stands as one of the few surviving European traces within a city that, for centuries, remained virtually closed to any visitor who did not profess Islam. And you, what's the most dangerous thing you've ever done in your life? Tell us about it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Because if there's one thing Harar makes clear, it's that living with danger, when done with respect and backed by centuries of tradition, can become part of an entire people's very identity. And as you're about to see, Harar isn't the only place in Ethiopia where people have learned to live side by side with what would be unthinkable in any other corner of the planet. In the south of the country, in the Omo Valley, one of the most isolated regions in all of Ethiopia, dozens of ethnic groups live who had barely any contact with the outside world until just a few decades ago. Among them, the Hamar preserve one of the most physically demanding rites of passage on the entire African continent. When a young Hamar man wants to be officially recognized as an adult, he must pass a test that allows for no failure. Jumping, completely naked from the waist up and barefoot, over the backs of a row of bulls lined up side by side, and crossing from one end to the other without falling. If he falls, the shame is not his alone. It belongs to his entire family. Before this trial, the women related to the young man participate in a ceremony of their own, in which they ask to be lightly whipped on the back as a sign of their commitment and support for him, leaving marks that they will later wear as a badge of pride for the rest of their lives. Further west, among the Mursi and the Surma, maturity and beauty are measured in a completely different way. Women in these communities pierce their lower lips during adolescence and, as the years go by, insert increasingly larger clay or wooden plates. The larger the plate, the greater the respect and social status accorded to the wearer. And among the Bodi tribe, the ideal of strength is measured not by muscle, but by bulk. For several months, unmarried men retreat alone to small huts, where their only food is a thick mixture of fresh blood and cow's milk. The goal is to gain as much weight as possible before the annual Kyle festival, where they parade before the entire village, and the man who achieves the greatest bulk is crowned the hero of the year, an honor he carries for the rest of his life. Further south still, the Konso people have developed a completely different way of honoring their dead and measuring the passage of time. Above the graves of their most respected leaders and warriors, they carve human-shaped wooden statues called wagas, surrounded by smaller figures representing their wives and the enemies or dangerous animals they faced in life. And every 18 years, the community drives a large wooden post into the village's main square, a generational post. By counting how many posts have been driven into the ground, anyone can calculate the exact age of the village, much like counting the rings of a tree. All these communities, despite living just a few kilometers apart, have developed completely different ways of understanding courage, beauty, and death, and almost none of them resemble anything we've seen elsewhere on the planet. In northeastern Ethiopia lies the Danakil Desert, considered the hottest place on Earth. With temperatures that can reach as high as 60 degrees Celsius, this desert poses an extreme challenge to humans and stands as a testament to the resilience of life under adverse conditions. Its surreal landscape, marked by vast salt formations, acid geysers, and lava lagoons, offers a spectacle of rugged, desolate beauty. Despite its hostility, the Danakil Desert is inhabited by local communities that have adapted their lives to these extreme conditions, in which most humans would not survive more than a few hours. The Afar, one of the ethnic groups residing in this region, make their living by harvesting salt, transporting it in long camel caravans across terrain that, in some places, lies more than 100 meters below sea level. Visiting the Danakil Desert without proper preparation can be extremely dangerous. High temperatures, a lack of water, and the volcanic activity of nearby Erta Ale, an active volcano with a constantly erupting lava lake, add risks that can only be safely navigated with expert guides and specialized equipment. But not all of Ethiopia's inhabitants, with whom one must coexist on a daily basis, are as peaceful as a hand-fed hyena. On the shore of Lake Chamo, in the south of the country, there is a stretch known as the Crocodile Market. There, day after day, dozens of large Nile crocodiles gather, some over 5 meters long, and local fishermen share the water with them every morning as they launch their boats. At the opposite end of the survival spectrum, in the town of Bekoji, the extreme altitude and a physically demanding lifestyle from childhood onward have turned this small town into a veritable factory of Olympic long-distance champions, most of whom are of Oromo ethnicity. Here, running isn't an elite sport. It's the most common way to get to school or work every day, at an altitude of more than 2,800 meters, something that unwittingly puts every child in Bekoji on par with the best athletes on the planet. Danakil, the crocodiles of Chamo, the runners of Bekoji. 3 radically different ways of living with the extreme, all within the same country. Most Ethiopians are Orthodox Christians, one of the oldest branches of faith on the planet. And in some parts of the country, that faith has taken a form found nowhere else in the world. Not upward, like any cathedral, but downward. In Lalibela, in the Northern Highlands, 11 entire churches were carved directly out of volcanic rock some 800 years ago, sculpted from the surface inward into the earth, resulting in complete buildings, with walls, columns, and roofs carved from a single block of stone. The best known, St. George's Church, is shaped like a cross when viewed from the sky. But what is truly extraordinary about Lalibela is not the existence of these churches. It is that people still use them every day, just as they have for 8 centuries. Entire families walking every Sunday to pray in the very same church carved out by their ancestors. Priests ascending and descending daily along stone staircases, worn smooth by generations of footsteps. And yet, as extraordinary as all this may seem, Lalibela is not, by a long shot, the place in all of Ethiopia where going to church is the most extreme. You'll discover that very soon, near the end of this video, when you learn how some communities must literally climb hand over hand, dozens of meters up a vertical rock face, just to pray, go to school, or simply return home. Now tell us, what do you believe in, if you believe in anything at all? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Every year, in late September, millions of Ethiopians gather to celebrate Meskel, one of the country's most widely attended festivals. A huge bonfire, over 30 meters high, is built from branches and yellow mescal flowers. And at nightfall, it is set alight before thousands of people who sing and dance around the flames until dawn. Tradition holds that the direction in which the ashes fall, once the fire has burned out, foretells what the coming year will be like for the entire community. If the ashes fall toward the east, a good harvest year is expected. If they fall in another direction, many interpret it as a warning. What makes Meskel special is not only its scale, but what it represents. A single ritual, celebrated in an almost identical way, by communities that in every other aspect of their daily lives may have absolutely nothing in common with one another. Because, as you've seen throughout this video, Ethiopia is not a single people, nor a single way of life. It is a country where more than 80 different ethnic groups coexist, each with its own language, its own way of dressing, eating, and understanding the world. A man living in the highlands of Lalibela may have a daily life completely different from that of an Afar herder in the Danakil Depression, and both, in turn, bear no resemblance to a young Hamar man preparing to leap onto the back of a bull, or to a runner from Bekoji training every morning at an altitude of more than 2,800 meters. This extreme diversity is no accident. It is, in large part, a direct consequence of something you already know. Ethiopia was never fully colonized. While the rest of Africa had borders drawn by European powers, often with no regard for the peoples already living there, Ethiopia retained its own borders, and with them, the possibility for each community to continue developing its own identity without a foreign authority imposing a single culture over all others. Added to this is a geography that borders on the impossible: plateaus at altitudes of over 3,000 meters, deserts where temperatures reach 60 degrees, and valleys and mountains that for centuries have kept entire communities isolated from one another, even within the same country. It is this combination, historical resilience and geographic isolation, that has allowed Ethiopia to remain, to this day, arguably one of the most culturally diverse countries in all of Africa. And even with all this diversity you've just learned about, there is still one last community to discover, one that lives in a way that not even the rest of Ethiopia would fully believe. And here it is, at last, the place we promised you a moment ago. In the Tigray region, in northern Ethiopia, perched on a vertical cliff over 200 meters high, lies Abuna Yamata Gu, a tiny church carved into the rock in the 5th century. There is no road, there are no stairs. There are no safety ropes, no railings, and no modern safety features of any kind. To reach it, priests and parishioners must climb the nearly vertical mountain face barefoot, clinging to the very same cracks and rock ledges that entire generations before them have used. A single misstep could mean a fatal fall. And what's most surprising isn't that the adults climb. It's that the children in these communities learn to do so almost as soon as they start walking. For them, it's neither a feat nor a test of courage. It's simply the usual route to school or to their grandparents' house, the same path their parents and grandparents traveled before them. On these very same vertical slopes, many families live side by side with their goats every day, animals that have adapted their gait to the rock almost as well as the inhabitants themselves, scrambling up ledges that anyone unfamiliar with the area would find hard to even look at without feeling dizzy. It's not uncommon to see a child herding his flock several hundred meters up, on a path barely a few centimeters wide, with the same ease with which any other child walks along a sidewalk. According to local tradition, the priests who once served at Abuna Yamatagu even climbed up to their own coffins, carried by fellow parishioners when they passed away, to be buried inside the very temple to which they had dedicated their entire lives. This is probably the most extreme example you'll see of how an entire community adapts its daily life, its faith, its childhood, and even its own death to a terrain that anywhere else in the world would be considered uninhabitable. With everything you've discovered today, what surprised you the most about the whole video? Tell us in the comments, we'd love to read your response. Ethiopia is probably one of the countries where faith, history, and survival are more intertwined than in any other corner of the planet. A place where living alongside the extreme, whether it's a hyena, a desert, or a vertical rock face, is not the exception. It's simply everyday life. If this place has left you speechless, our next journey will take us even further. Because there are other peoples, in other corners of the planet, who have pushed human adaptation even beyond what you've seen today. Humans who live underwater, almost as if they were fish. Peoples whose bodies have been shrunk by nature itself, generation after generation, in order to survive, and communities with the healthiest hearts ever measured by modern science. Don't miss what's coming, because what you're about to discover there is even harder to believe than everything you've seen today.